The Muslims were struggling a lot in Mecca. When Islam first came, the people that were most attracted to Islam were those of lower socioeconomic status, people who weren't considered to have a lot in Mecca. And so because of their status in society, they were people that once they accepted Islam, they were persecuted and tortured even more. And the Prophet ﷺ, seeing this fledgling Muslim community being tortured and treated in such a horrible way, where they were being martyred, they were being abused in the most awful ways possible, he realized that Mecca was no longer a safe place for the Muslims to live. Therefore, he started looking outside of Mecca to see where would be a safe haven for the Muslims to live. And he recognized that there was the land of Abyssinia, the amazing land of Habasha, led by a very just and kind and compassionate king, An-Najashi. An-Najashi, he was a Christian leader, and his kingdom was a Christian kingdom. But it was a place that was known for justice. It was a place that was known for religious freedom, that people could live and survive there, and they wouldn't be persecuted for what they believed in. So the Prophet ﷺ started sending Muslims to live in Habasha in peace. And they were surviving and they were fine up until the Quraysh realized that there seems to be a few lesser of them in this city. There seems to be not much chaos and not much of these Muslims making commotion. So they realized that the Muslims were actually slowly being funneled out to a different land, and they weren't okay with it. The Quraysh in Mecca didn't just want Islam to disappear from Mecca. They wanted it to be destroyed completely. They wanted it off the face of the earth. So they realized that the Muslims were going to Habasha, and they sent two envoys, Amr bin As and Umara, to Habasha to speak to the Najashi and basically convince him to bring the Muslims back. Amr bin As specifically was a friend of Najashi, and he came to the court of Najashi with many gifts for him and for the rest of his court. And he had a conversation with Najashi, and he said to him, there's a people that have come from our land to yours, and they're basically runaway slaves. They're horrible people, and we want them to come back to our land so that we can, punish them accordingly, treat them accordingly. Najashi, being a very fair and just ruler, he said, okay, Amr, you're my friend. I've heard your side, but I believe in justice, and I want to hear the other side as well. This other side, the Muslim group of people that had migrated to Habasha, was led by the cousin of the Prophet ﷺ, the beloved Ja'far bin Abi Talib. And when he was called to the court of Najashi, he basically explained to Najashi and the rest of the court what Islam was all about. And what the Prophet ﷺ came with, the message that he came with, the message of, good character and good faith. And Najashi realized that these weren't just runaway slaves. These weren't people who were doing anything wrong. They just wanted to survive. And so he said, you know what? It's fine that they live here. Amr, I heard you out, but my rule is that they're fine to stay here. Amr bin As, he didn't take no for an answer. He turned to Najashi the next day and he said, these people, they believe in a very different religion than yours. They say certain things about Isa, Jesus, that you might not be okay with. So they may be very disrespectful to Jesus. So it's important for you to hear what they have to say. Najashi, being a very loyal person and a very devout Christian, a Christian scholar in fact, he hears what Amr says, and he calls Ja'far radiallahu anhu and the rest of the Muslims back to his court again. And he said, I hear you say certain things about Isa. Let me hear what you have to say. And Ja'far radiallahu anhu at this moment begins reciting verses from Surah Maryam, where Maryam alayhi salam, she receives the message from Jibreel alayhi salam that she's about to give birth to a baby boy. And she asks the question, how am I going to give birth to a baby boy when lam yamsasni bashar? Ja'far radiallahu anhu is reciting the verses from Surah Maryam where she says that no man has ever touched me, so how is this possible? And Jibreel alayhi salam responds and he says, قَالَ كَذَلِكِ. That's just how it's going to be. قَالَ رَبُّكَ هُوَ عَلَيَّ هَيَّنٌ. This is easy for your Lord. There's nothing, you think that this whole situation is impossible. You think that this doesn't make any sense, but this is easy for your Lord. And what we learn here are so many different lessons, but two that I want to focus on over here is that Ja'far radiallahu anhu, when he was in a bind, when he was brought into a court of the king, and he was asked these difficult questions about what he says about Isa alayhi salam, when clearly what Islam says about Isa alayhi salam and what Christians at that time believed in was very different. Right? And so when he was in a bind, he turned to the Quran. The Quran is the solution to all of our problems. The Quran absolutely can help us get us out of any difficult situation that we are in. We just have to recognize it and use it. And secondly, to actually take the lesson that Maryam alayhi salam learned in this moment, that whenever we think that something is impossible, just like how Maryam alayhi salam thought that giving birth to a child when no man had ever touched her was impossible, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed her that everything is easy for Allah. When you trust in Allah, and whatever is supposed to happen is going to happen with the power and will and might of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Our goal and objective here at Qalam is to make the knowledge and the understanding of Islam as accessible as possible to as many people as we can. Alhamdulillah, we hope and pray that this video was of benefit to you, and that you benefited from the knowledge and the understanding shared here. Continue to help us reach as many people as possible and share the knowledge of our beautiful religion worldwide by going to supportqalam.com and becoming our partner in these efforts.